You are at a restaurant. You look at the menu, decide what you want, but before the waiter arrives, you turn to your friend and ask, "Is it okay if I order the steak?" You do not ask because you are indecisive. You ask because independent choice feels like standing naked in hostile territory. The world calls this being a pushover. Science calls it a survival adaptation. Today, we will unpack exactly why your brain treats autonomy like a physical threat, and how to turn this chronic permission-seeking into quiet, unbreakable self-trust. There is a damaging myth in pop psychology. It states that people who chronically seek approval or ask for unnecessary permission do so because they are spineless or lack an internal compass. They are told to just be more confident. From a neurobiological perspective, this is dangerously incorrect. The chronic need to ask for permission is not a manifestation of weakness. It is a highly sophisticated, deeply ingrained neurological defense strategy. We call it the approval reflex. You are using consensus as camouflage. To understand this reflex, you have to look at the environment where the human brain evolved. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans survived exclusively in tight-knit tribes. In that environment, ostracism was not an emotional injury. It was a physical death sentence. A lone human wandering the savannah could not survive. Your brain developed profound alarm systems to prevent you from doing anything that might result in expulsion from the group. Independent choice requires stepping out of the collective identity. To your primitive brain, that is terrifying. When you make a choice that diverges from the group, you risk social friction. Social friction introduces the possibility of rejection. Brain imaging shows that social rejection activates the exact same region of the brain that processes physical pain. To your brain, the threat of someone being disappointed in your independent choice is processed like a physical injury. So, asking for permission is simply a pain avoidance strategy. You are preemptively anaesthetizing yourself against the neurological agony of disapproval. Because this is a primal reflex, cognitive logic will not stop it. You need a practical patch. The first tool is somatic regulation before choice. When you feel the intense urge to ask for permission for a low-stakes decision, pause. Notice where the anxiety lives in your body. Engage in a physiological sigh. Take 2 quick inhales through your nose, followed by a long, slow exhale through your mouth. This immediately activates your parasympathetic nervous system. You must teach your body that it is physically safe before you speak. Let us look deeper into why that physical regulation is required. Dr. Stephen Porges revolutionized psychology with the Polyvagal theory. He introduced Neuroception, which is your nervous system constantly and subconsciously scanning the room for danger. For a chronic permission seeker, asserting a personal need triggers a neuroceptive cue of danger. Your nervous system instantly spikes into a state of sympathetic anxiety. You are quite literally biologically hijacked by a feeling of impending doom just for wanting to leave a party early. Here is the core mechanical truth of the approval reflex. Social engagement is the fastest way to return your nervous system to a state of safety. When you look at someone and ask if your choice is okay, and they smile and say yes, their approving facial expression acts as a biological pacifier. You are not seeking permission because you are indecisive. You are using the other person to regulate your own nervous system. You are borrowing their feeling of safety because your autonomy triggered a panic response. This reflex often takes root in childhood. If you grew up in an environment of conditional love or authoritarian parenting, independent choice was punished. If you expressed a preference different from your parent, you were met with anger or the silent treatment. You learned a devastating lesson early on. You learned that your autonomy destroys your connection. If being yourself causes caregivers to withdraw love, you learn to abandon yourself to preserve the relationship. You scan the emotional weather of the room and adjust accordingly. In trauma psychology, this is known as the Fawn response. Fawning is an adaptation where you seek to avoid conflict by appeasing the threat. It is the use of extreme people-pleasing to pacify someone else. Asking for permission in this context is a highly advanced tactical de-escalation maneuver. It is the psychological equivalent of a wolf exposing its belly to an alpha. It says, "I am no threat to you. Please do not attack me." It is not weakness. It is a brilliant strategy that kept you safe. But in adulthood, this survival strategy becomes a prison. It is amplified by a cognitive bias called the spotlight effect. You falsely believe you are being noticed and judged significantly more than you actually are. When you make an independent choice, like setting a firm boundary at work, the approval reflex kicks in because you feel a massive spotlight shining on you. You catastrophize. You assume everyone is analyzing your character and preparing to retaliate. You ask for permission to turn off the blinding spotlight of responsibility. This feeling of exposure is often tied to the fear of being too much. Many permission seekers carry a core belief that their unedited self is inherently problematic. You might have been told you were too loud, too sensitive, or selfish. Society frequently weaponizes the concept of selfishness to maintain control over individuals. Asserting a basic need gets labelled as toxic. The approval reflex acts as a moral buffer. Getting permission socially sanctions your action as good, protecting you from your own internalized toxic shame. Understanding the root is the first step, but you must actively retrain the brain. Our second practical patch is titration. In trauma therapy, titration is the process of exposing yourself to a small, manageable amount of distress to build tolerance. You cannot go from chronic people-pleasing to radical autonomy overnight. That will trigger a panic response and force you right back into fawning. Instead, you must practice graduated exposure. You must stop asking for permission in incredibly low-stakes scenarios. Start very small. Do not ask what movie your partner wants to watch. Simply state that you are going to put a specific movie on. Do not ask a colleague if it is okay to send an email. Just send it. Notice the anxiety that arises. It will feel entirely disproportionate to the event. Your brain might scream that your partner will resent you. Breathe through it. Let the anxiety spike and naturally recede. Surviving these micro-exposures proves to your amygdala that autonomy will not kill you. As you practice titration, you must actively deploy our central reframe. You must shift your definition of independent choice from selfish to self-responsible. When you constantly ask for permission, you are actually placing an emotional burden on others. You are asking them to manage your anxiety and make your decisions for you. By making a choice independently, you are freeing them from the burden of managing your life. Independence is not an act of defiance against your group. It is the ultimate act of self-responsibility. To step out of the approval reflex completely, you must accept a harsh but liberating psychological truth. You will be the villain in someone else's story, and you will survive it. The permission seeker operates under the illusion that if they are careful enough and ask enough questions, they can navigate life without ever causing displeasure. Human needs naturally conflict. Disappointing others is an unavoidable mathematical certainty. Healing requires grieving the fantasy of universal approval. Someone will be annoyed by your choice, and that is okay. When the terror of making an independent choice feels overwhelming, use this grounding patch to separate the past from the present. Ask yourself a simple question. How old do I feel right now? Often, the anxiety of the approval reflex belongs to a 7-year-old version of yourself who was punished for speaking up. Remind your nervous system of your current reality. Tell yourself, I'm an adult. I have my own resources. Even if this person is upset with my choice, I will not die. I am safe. The camouflage of people-pleasing keeps you from being attacked, but it also keeps you from being truly known. Independent choice feels dangerous because, for the first time, you are allowing the world to see you as a distinct, autonomous entity. You are saying that you exist independent of their approval. Tolerating the anxiety of that exposure is the foundation of psychological maturity. As you make choices without a safety net of consensus, the trembling will subside. You are safe to choose. You are safe to exist. Here is your field guide challenge for the next 24 hours. Pick one trivial decision that you would normally outsource to a partner, friend, or co-worker. It could be where to eat lunch, when to take a break, or what route to drive. Make the decision unilaterally and state it as a fact, not a question. Feel the physical discomfort of the spotlight. Breathe through it and watch the world keep spinning. Autonomy is a muscle. Start lifting. I will see you in the next guide.